So we are like saying how the economic depression was solved. We believe the economic depression led to so many problems like high levels of poverty, high levels of inflation. But the question is how that depression was solved. We need to know how it was solved. Number one, a World Economic Conference attended by 66 states was held in Genoa in 1933. It was aimed at finding solutions to the economic slump that had paralyzed the world. The delegates came out with the solutions to cover and cater for the economic problems of that time. So we believe a World Economic Conference was attended by 66 states. The major issue that was discussed was how to solve the problem of the economic depression. So by this time, all of the leading brain had to bring solutions. The leading brains had to bring solutions to help the world recover from the economic what? Depression. Another one, other powers resorted to drastic measures in order to deal with depression. Most leaders became dictators and used forces against strikes and demonstrations that were provoked by the slump, depression. So some powers hiked tariffs to protect infant industries. We believe by this time that powers resorted to drastic measures. In this kind of arrangement, powers resorted to drastic measures. For example, all of those people that were striking, all those people that were rising up against depression had to be imprisoned, and by this time, many of them were arrested. This was aimed at stopping the problems caused by the economic depression. It is said the powers, what they did was to put high tariffs to the goods from outside. The strategy was to encourage infant industries to develop. In this kind of arrangement, as a high tariffs were put on the products from outside, it is this that led to that helped the problem of economic depression to be solved. Because people, instead of buying from outside, they started buying within their what? Their country. Because by this time, this could boost the industries. And those people who were employed there, in turn, could get a lot of money, and they also could start up what? Businesses, which could provide employment opportunities to the people. And this solved the problem of economic depression. Another one, Germany violated the Versailles Peace Treaty as a way of addressing the depression. We believe by this time, Germany violated the Versailles Peace Treaty as a way of addressing the depression. She occupied the coalfield, Rhinelands, and embarked on rapid industrialization, especially under Hitler. We believe by this time the Versailles Peace Treaty had refused the German to occupy the Saar region. But in this kind of arrangement and Rhinelands, but when Hitler rose up, what Hitler did, he forcibly occupied those places. When he occupied those places, it is said Hitler started building industries. When he built industries, getting money from those regions, people got employment opportunities. As they got employment opportunities, this solved the problem of unemployment and improved on the standards of living. I can tell you the standard of living of people had to change, and this solved the problem of the economic what? Depression. So we are looking at the solutions to the problem of the economic depression. USA embarked on some reforms that contributed to the end of the depression. She depreciated the value of her dollar. USA also realized her weakness and broke her pre-1919 policy of economic nationalism and isolationism. You remember at one time, US had practiced what you call protectionism. Protectionism, this is an economic strategy where a country does not allow citizens to buy from outside. But what USA did, it removed that kind of what? Protectionism. This meant by this time that even citizens later from America were allowed to buy goods from outside. And this helped those countries also to get money. And this solved the problem of the economic depression. Another one, we are like saying today, formation of regional economic integration that was used by the European powers to resolve the economic crisis, aware that protectionism and isolationism had caused the depression. European powers embarked on forming regional economic integration to revive free trade. USA formed an integration of South American states. The Scandinavian countries formed Oslo. So believe by this time, economic organizations were formed. In other words, the economic organizations was meant that if a country had economic problems, had to be helped by the strong what? Country. In other words, you were supposed to be in one organization, and the big countries could trade from smaller what? Smaller countries. And it is this that led to the problem of the economic depression to be what? Solved. Change is rising up. So we need to understand, friends, how the problem of the economic depression was solved. Another area of argument, powerful states like Britain, France, and USA provided unemployment benefits and relief to the unemployed. Altogether, the unemployed were provided with unemployment benefits. Like, if you were unemployed, what the government did was to give you some money altogether to develop, because you are unemployed. People had to be paid some money. This money was used by some business-oriented individuals to start up businesses, and this solved the problem of economic what? Depression. I can tell you, leading economists like Keynesian came up with the solutions to solve the problem of the economic what? Depression. Abandonment of the gold standard system also provided a solution to the depression. By 1933, most European states discarded the gold standard system that had contributed to the outbreak of the economic depression. European countries started issuing money irrespective of the amount of gold in reserves. You remember, the gold standard system, this was a system where total amount of money in circulation was supposed to be equivalent to the total amount of gold deposited in World Bank. But what happened? By this time, they removed this condition because those people that did not have enough gold had a few amount of money in what? In circulation. This was removed, and this solved the problem of economic what? Depression. Change is rising up. We are like saying, some powerful states adopted an aggressive foreign policy to handle the economic depression. They embarked on territorial conquest and annexation to acquire raw materials. We believe by this time, some states adopted aggressive foreign policy. What was the aggressive foreign policy? This was a policy where stronger states had to attack a weak what? Weak states. As weak states were attacked, it is this that helped people, that helped the governments to get raw materials. Because as weak states were attacked in this kind of arrangement, as weak states were attacked, it meant the big states had to get raw materials which were used in industries. And this solved the problem of the economic what? Depression. Change is rising up. So we need to understand the socio-economic reforms. The socio-economic what? Reforms. Another point, the socio-economic reforms were also used to address the depression. These were policies designed for the modernization of agriculture, industry, and social services. Let me tell you, as agriculture was modernized, roads were built. It meant that the farmers could easily move from one area to another. And this led to the development of agriculture, which helped the farmers to get money. They became employed, and this solved the problem of the economic depression. Because what some farmers wanted were just good roads to move from one area to another. Another point, adoption of agro-based industries was also used to provide solution to the depression. European nations built agricultural-based industries. For example, corn, maize industry in USA, cotton industry. Let me tell you, industries were built. When these industries were built, people got employment opportunities. Let me tell you, it is through industries that a country can get what we call sustainable development. Because industries tend to employ so many what? People. So by this, as people got jobs, they were paid. When they were paid and they got some money, the money they got, they started also somewhat businesses. When they started businesses, in this case, other people also got what? Jobs. And the problem of unemployment was solved. The problem of poor standard of living was solved. And this led to the development of countries in Europe. Another one, lending was restricted because whatever money was to be borrowed would be directed to poverty alleviation other than investments. We believe by this time, governments came up with what we call poverty alleviation programs. This was done in this kind of arrangement, helping even smaller farmers. People had smaller investments also to boost their what? Their investments, which could mean that they could get jobs in form of employment opportunities, and in turn, countries could do what? Develop. On the other hand, governments took direct control of banks in order to regulate money supply. We believe by this time, the government reduced the interest rates, which increased the level of borrowing and investments. We believe by this time, the government reduced the interest what? Rates. You know, when private banks were in the business, we are putting high interest what? Rates. And people could not manage to borrow and start up businesses or add in their businesses. But when governments took over banks, the governments reduced interest. As the government reduced the interest, it meant that industries could manage to do what? To borrow. And in turn, industries could not collapse, which led to the development of economies. So we need to understand the policies that were adopted by European powers to solve the problem of the economic what? Depression. To solve the problem of the economic depression. So in this kind of arrangement, military conscription was one of the strategies used to end the depression. Germany, France, Britain embarked on military conscription, through which able-bodied men were recruited into national armed forces. This expanded employment opportunity and addressed the problem of unemployment. We are like saying military conscription. Military what? Conscription. Where we believe in this kind of arrangement, the youth, the what? The youth were like forced to join the army. When they were forced, even if some youth didn't want it, but since they were forced, and in that army, they used to be paid altogether. As they were paid, it is this that made the youth to improve on their standard of living, and this solved the problem of the economic what? Depression. Then, political changes led to the rise of stronger governments that ended economic depression. Let me tell you, political changes in countries solved the problem of the economic what? Depression. In USA, the depression led to the rise of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who came up with the policies which were meant to bring social and economic reforms in USA. So change of governments. You remember even in Germany, Adolf Hitler used the weakness of the Weimar Republic to campaign for himself. Because Adolf Hitler convinced people that if you give me chance today, I'm going to solve the economic what? Problems. And in turn, this solved the problem of the economic what? Depression. Another one, adoption of a New Deal policy also enabled Europe to address the depression. The New Deal policy was initiated by the new USA President D. Roosevelt from 1932. The policy that was adopted was made to provide employment benefits, pensions to retired workers. In other words, we are seeing the New Deal where President Roosevelt came up with a policy of giving pensions to the retired what? Workers. In other words, even if that the workers were retired, they had to be given somewhat, some money to develop. Unemployment benefits. Those who had no jobs had to be given some money to sustain their lives. And this led to good standards of living. Even strategists had to start up businesses using the money which was given to them. And this solved the problem of the economic depression. Then, the rise and influence of J.M. Keynes was paramount in ending the depression. Keynes, a classical economist, proposed solutions that helped Europe to solve economic depression. He analyzed the causes of the depression and provided a solution to the problems associated with depression. Keynes invented the famous Keynesian theory of unemployment, in which it stated that unemployment arises due to deficiency in aggregate demand for goods. We believe great economists like Keynes altogether came up with the solutions, and their solutions had to be adopted by European powers. When the solutions were adopted, it is these